Enduro Method is an online strength and conditioning program built for those who ride by those who ride. We are professional coaches dedicated to building the best and most revolutionary off and on the bike training for dirt bikers around. Enduro Method offers a monthly subscription which gives you access to our ongoing current training program. By subscribing to Enduro Method, you receive our Iron Track, which is for those who have a gym or gym equipment, and our Gravity Track for those with minimal to no equipment. We design our training for riders who want to keep their general physical preparedness in top form year-round. We also offer more specific training plans that you can purchase anytime. We have built an 8-week hard enduro training plan designed to get you ready to race with structured off and on the bike workouts, all in a comprehensive 8-week plan. If you are interested in joining the monthly Enduro Method training subscription, we are offering a special discount for our podcast listeners. Use discount code EMPodcast23 in all caps for 50% off your first month of training. See the show notes where you can find discount codes and a link for more information and to sign up for Enduro Method. And now, on to the show. All right, on today's podcast, James Stearns and I kind of got right into it. We ended up just hitting the record button and going. So the beginning, probably half hour or so, is more on James's racing history overseas, how all this stuff has influenced what he's trying to build up on the mountain at the race. But if you are more interested in just race details specifically, jump in maybe right around the 33-minute mark. And then it's much more tailored to this year's event. All right. Thank you. Enjoy.
That could be a whole nother podcast because there's just a lot of history. It's been a long, crazy road.
Yeah.
5 Romaniacs, Erzberg, not including all the other international races. And, it's not hobby class either.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's interesting too, because you come from a place where you're already really strong. And so, you don't need to spend a lot of time and emphasis on building muscle and getting stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really a constant ratio that's moving. And I look at it from that standpoint. I've been fortunate enough that I've been a competitor most of my life, with a national championship in powerlifting, a national championship in premier rugby. I lived in Australia playing premier rugby for several years, and then not including NCAA football, wrestling, and everything, so I've been in sport my whole life. And, dirt bikes was always kind of a third thing, like a fourth thing. And, we just kind of monkeyed around a little bit with it. And I don't know why. I'm not built for this stuff. So, but I like it. I like being outdoors. I like the physical challenge. So, it really becomes a ratio. And I think the ratio changes for people because, especially in the business that you're in, there's no doubt. People need some type of base training, some type of from cardio to strength, etc. But then you also look at that like a recipe in baking a cake, and if the cake at the end of the day is being a better hard enduro rider, these ratios change because as you get to a certain level, all things being equal, and this is basically how I started. I look at a sport and go, okay, what is under my control? Like, what can I do today to make me better? And at the time, because I didn't have the access to the people I have access to, the people who I know, the people who I ride with, not in a training session, but, as mates, as fun. And that ranges from Billy Bolt to Alfredo Gomez to Jarvis, to all these guys, not a class, riding with them, just like you would go riding with your buddies, there in Idaho. And I didn't have that in the beginning. And so what could I control? Well, I know how to lift weights. I know how to do cardio. So I'm like, hey, let's do that. So I did a lot of that. And, for me, having the weight base, I didn't need to really lift a lot of weights. I needed more cardio and more general fitness. But since I could only get so much riding time in, I'd take that riding time when I got it. But, you mix these ratios around. And then once you get that base under you, then you're like, and then the riding opportunities open. The best bang for your buck, like you said, is riding. But it gets complicated because you have lots of different types of riding. And, it annoys people. People ask like, well, what do they need to do? And I can tell you this, like, you can ride like all the hardest Forest Service trails in Idaho and Montana for the rest of your life. And that will not prepare you even close for, say, a silver class or a gold class in Europe.
Right.
You'll do nothing. Like, you can ride that stuff and be so proficient, and you'll go over there and you'll be like, wow, I've got a problem. And it's just a whole different program. But until you kind of figure out, what that kind of riding is, it's tough. I was fortunate up in Bozeman that, we had several, or a few guys that had done Red Bull Romaniacs. Keith Curtis, kind of one of my primary riding partners, he had done a couple of them. Kevin Miller, he's an OG. He did them back in the original days. I'm talking like, I don't know, 2005, 2006. Like, no one even knew what it was. And I didn't know Kevin then, but he literally saw like one of those black and white inch long ads in the back of a dirt bike magazine for Romaniacs. No one had even heard of it. And he was crazy enough to like call the number.
Right.
And go over there. And that's when they were racing across the country. And it kind of got annoying for me because when I started trying to train for it, we would go and try and find the hardest stuff, on trail, off trail. And we're doing the hardest stuff we could find. And he particularly, in his own way, is everything we'd do, he's like, oh, that's nothing. That's nothing. That's nothing. And then finally, like, for being someone that I'm a type A personality, I'm not shy. And finally, I'm just like, fuck, man, how hard can it be? Like, everything we do, you say it's not hard enough. And, and I got annoyed with them a little bit, but I kept on the program. And long story short, I went over there for my first year, which I think was 2017, I think, maybe 18, and went over there, and I went 3 weeks early. And in that first week, first few days of riding, I thought, I'm in fucking trouble. Like, I'm in real trouble. Like, not only race this thing, this type of terrain, this type of riding, I don't know if I can survive it, let alone race it. And it was a full 3 weeks effort. And I'm riding with really good guys, and I'm just getting crushed. It's not about speed. Like, if you can't get up it, you just can't get up it. Right. And there's no way to push a bike through a 100-mile hard enduro per day. There's just not enough day. And that really caught my attention, and I finished, and I got my medal, but it wasn't a race. It was a pure effort of survival.
Right.
I just wasn't. And back then, hard enduro's come a long way since then. With skills, etc. Shoot, I look at 2019, and I won the A Open at Sticks and Stones at Silver that year. And I'd won the 40 plus the year before. And, so I thought, hey, like, I know how to ride. And I got crushed. It was just, an effort of survival. But for me, one of the strongest motivators is resolve. It's like when you feel like you've been crushed that way, man, it makes me want to come back harder and
Right.
train hard. And to me, that overseas type of racing, that's the greatest gift, is that when you ride that type of terrain and you see what they put in front of you, well, all of a sudden, it's not just someone telling you, hey, everything that you're riding where you're at is too easy. Then you actually can see it and you can replicate it.
Right.
Or try to replicate it. And you can work on those techniques. And long story short, when I went back the next year, I felt like I crushed it. I raced the same class. I felt like I raced every day, like I was racing
Right.
every 5 days. And that wasn't the case, the year before. But that's because I had an idea of what to expect and I knew what to train. And, to just give some perspective, Cody Webb told me last year, he's like, man, I got to be honest. He goes, I've never had to rest on a downhill in my life. There were downhills that, and this is Cody talking, that I rested 2 or 3 times because they were so gnarly and so scary, and you're holding on so tight. And you're going down 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 vertical feet in one poke.
Right.
And you're just like, people are cramping. And, it's just a different thing. And, this really kind of rolls into what we're doing at Silver Kings. And last year, for sure, I mean, we got thrown into the fire taking the race so early. It came up, we got it. It was essentially the middle of winter. And, we're trying to put our stamp on it. And it was pretty fun to see. And it definitely had components of that European Romaniac style. And certain things happened in that race that, I just heard about it, but I got to go back and ride it. And I rode all those sections. And it was just like being kind of like a proud dad, because the one, I think the guys were calling Vietnam.
Yeah, Green Hell or whatever.
Yeah. I rode up through that several times and just enjoyed it, just loved it, because what happened is by the time everybody went through, there was probably a dozen different lines.
Yeah.
And I would start working one line and I was having so much fun. And I had Matt Spears with me and he's working a couple lines, and we're trying to kind of race each other to the top. He's, 50 yards over. And then I would start in one line. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to try the next line. So I'll pop over, one, and do a couple tic tacs, etc. And that's kind of, some of the stuff I've scheduled to talk about in the podcast is that kind of design. And, that is part of what we're looking to do here, is to give the riders that type of variety terrain they're just not used to. They're not used to kind of having a blank open canvas and do what you want with it. They
Right.
they'll queue up, in the line, and that's just not how it's done. And some guys did it. I remember a guy from Washington contacting me, and the guy, he was riding a 450 4-stroke, obviously. And he came into that section and he's like, holy crap. He goes, it was like Armageddon. But he goes, I just put my head down and I just started going and working. And, it took me an hour or so, but I got out of there and he finished.
Right.
And, so it can be done. And it was really neat to definitely, there's no doubt, everybody, that section's going to be in the race this year. We may add, a couple extra lines going into it, to try to relieve it and make it at least flow to the, a little better, but not really. Riding through it developed incredibly well.
Yeah. It was one of those things where you could sit in line or you could figure out a way to get above or below and get around people.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great. Like it was a blast. yeah, you could get sucked in and sit there and wait and move, 5 feet at a time slowly, or, find a little ledge or something and start switch back a little higher and then make your way across and drop back down and back up. And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And really that's European racing. And, and you see guys do it a little bit here. And I think it's just something that I'm going to talk more about it this year to hopefully kind of get people into that concept. And I was really reminded, this year after our race, I went and I did Dit Rocks, which is a Romanian national hard enduro race, which is a 3-day race. And these guys are savages. These guys are all Romanians. And you'd see that thing happen all the time. You'd see, hey, maybe there's 2-3 lines, cut into a section, but they get, somebody messes up, they get blocked up. And tell you what, man, I mean, it's no different than the highway. When you have a 2-lane that goes to a 1-lane, guess what? Things back up. So that's the fun part of hard enduro racing to me, is that whole idea of strategy. It's like, okay, you got a lot of different options. And in that case, here are these lines blocked. 2-3 guys went to the left, hopped up. One guy's throwing logs, and you basically formed a band of like 4 or 5 guys. And I went with that group, and we worked our way up. And that's the whole concept to me, where firstly, it's man against the mountain. Right. And when I mean man, I don't mean a dude. I mean like mankind. So men, women, children, like, first of all, we're fighting the mountain. So when we need to, we band together if we need to and get over to that next point. And then once we've got over that point, well, then we can go man versus man. But until then, and that's a pure, it's a pure point of strategy. It's like you either decide to team up with someone. And we saw that this year on the video. I thought it was interesting. Cooper Abbott, David Garza, they teamed up on the gondola hill and helped each other up. And respectively, David Garza finished 4th in pro and Cooper Abbott 6th. So this isn't just something for, C-class people to do. Right. I mean, I think you have to take that strategy in mind. And when you come to one of those sections where people are held up, and I mean, it's just a deep subject because it goes into, the human character as well. If you're smoked and you've been breathing hard and you're feeling rough, the human nature is to come to there and just stop. And you'll see people will stop, and then they'll take great satisfaction in directing traffic or yelling at other riders, to get in line. Because honestly, if they weren't smoked, they should be helping the person in front of them to get out of their way.
Right.
Or finding a different place to go. Because if you're racing and you have the physicality, and that's being in shape and having the mindset, you find a different way. And, from that becomes strategy. And there is an etiquette in Europe. I mean, if you're going to be on the trail and you're not going to be on your bike, get your bike out of the way so that other people can get by, because right. Other riders will be coming. You have to decide, can you make it yourself? If you can't make it yourself, it may be a better strategy to I call the contract. Like, okay, we're doing this one obstacle. Maybe we form a group of 3 and we will help all 3. But after this obstacle, the contract has been completed.
Yeah.
It just goes on in my head.
Right.
And then we move on to the next thing. And hey, if I clear the next obstacle, well, I don't have to make a new contract with someone. But if I get to the next one, maybe I do. I have to make that decision because, I'm just, I think being a good human, or I don't know, just being a stand-up person, like, you don't have someone help you and leave them.
Right.
I don't work that way. So I have to think about that. It's like, well, okay, well, if I got help, well, I'm going to stay around to help them. So you got to figure out like how much effort it's going to take me to do it by myself versus having help. And then, that's going to take extra time, obviously, to pull them up too, or vice versa. That's part of the strategy. And, I've had it work great for me. I've had it bite me in the ass. There was a few years ago racing gold class at Dit Rocks, and there was a waterfall section with a big nasty ledge. And that's kind of, one of the things I'm pretty decent at. And they're like, hey, these two Romanian guys spoke hardly any English, and they're kind of, motioning for me to, help. And I just shook my head because I thought I could do it, and I did it, and went up past them. And man, I'm just thinking things are awesome. Well, I get up further on that hill, and I got into a nasty, nasty section, so steep, off camber, nothing cut in. And, man, it took me like 20 minutes to make it up like 20 vertical feet. And then I low sided the bike, and I didn't want to give it up. But now these two guys show up, gas is pouring down the front of my chest from my bike. And I don't want to give it up, but it's too steep. There's no way I'm going to push the bike, back up. And I'm trying. And I kind of looked at those guys like, hey, you want to give me some help here? They kind of looked at me like, fuck you, and they worked together, and left me, and like, fair enough, it's like, I think we were on a different contract, but nonetheless, I didn't participate with that. They kind of took that as maybe, like, screw you. And then that next section, I was like, that's one of the few times I've ever asked like for help, because I'm literally trying to hold the bike with gas going down my chest, but it was one of those things. And, and I ended up getting out of there by myself. But, it's like, it's that strategy. I'm sure if I'd have helped those guys, we would have helped each other through that section too.
Right.
But, you don't know how it plays out. You just that's the strategy. You play your best game and, make partnerships, when it makes sense. And to me, that's like one of the most incredible things about hard enduro.
Right. Well, and that's one of the things, like after races, you'll hear, people kind of bitching or moaning about, oh, I helped so-and-so, and then we kind of partnered up for the whole race and they were holding me up. And it's like, well, yeah, dude, exactly that. Like, make a contract, get through the obstacle. And then from there, sure, if you meet up at the next obstacle, maybe team up again. But if you never see them again, you did your part, they did their part, and move on with your day.
I'd buy that story if you had to like take them home with you after the end of the race.
Right.
Move them into your house.
Yeah.
Like the crazy uncle. No, but again, in all fairness, the American scene, you don't see a lot of it. You'll see it here and there. I remember watching part of the Grinding Stone recap is Tristan had a pretty big lead on everybody, and he got up Stairway to Heaven, and he turned around and pulled Will Rorden up. Just gave him a little bit of time. And I think that's cool, man. I've had random acts of kindness too, where someone's in a bad way, and man, sometimes, man, you can just stop and just give them a little pull and get them right-sided and go. It all depends on the situation, but I think that kind of karma, I may not believe in a lot in life, but karma to some extent, just because the fact, if you do crappy things all your life, probably crappy things are going to find you. Yeah. But if you do kind of, try to be on the even flow on the good side, I think you have more good experiences than bad, So if I believe in anything, I do believe a little bit in karma. But people like to bitch, and they have, think about it with like working out. That's your guys' business, right? Well, you guys know the psychology. The mind is the most amazing thing of figuring out ways to tell you why you shouldn't work out today. And there are awesome reasons. Like, such awesome reasons, why you don't do this, why you don't do that. The mind's awesome at it, and shoot, it's still with riding, if you ride a lot and you're really putting in sessions, it's like, man, I don't know, I got this and this, and my wife has this, and maybe I should just not do it today, but it's that discipline, not motivation. It's that discipline that, makes you get it done. And I see it just, very similar, it's guys get smoked, they get tired. It's a lot easier to blame someone else than their own, skill set, their own attitude. It's just a lot easier. And that stuff comes out in the wash in these races. And that's why I do them.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny because I just wrote a blog post called Moderation Sucks. And it was essentially just that idea, everybody wants balance, moderation, and that's great. In some aspects of your life, you absolutely need that. But in my estimation, it's also a little bit of the coward's way out because you're not willing to put yourself in fully. You know what I mean? You're kind of approaching it half-assed. You got one foot out the door. That way, when it doesn't work out, which inevitably it will sometimes, you got an excuse to fall back on, like, oh, I stayed with so-and-so during the race the whole time. I could have done better. Or, I couldn't work out for this amount of time or train hard. And that's why I'm, here and there. And it's like, yeah, that's one way to do it. But at the end of the day, if you're passionate about it and want to be better, like, put it out there and go all in.
Yeah, it takes that drive. I was talking to, a good friend, let's call him Mr. Miller, yesterday evening. And I mean, this is the guy who was doing this stuff before anyone even ever knew about it. Romaniacs 15 years ago. And he helped with Silver Kings last year, and he has helped retrieving bikes. And, so he was on the mountain, riding around and helping out. And he's just like, man, he goes, I can't believe this. It's like, people just stop. He goes, to me, when I was racing, if you're just going to stop and watch, like, you might as well just, like, and this is him. He's just like, he's pretty hardcore. He's like, you might as well just, like, go back to the truck. Like, you're not even racing anymore. You've
Right.
given up.
Right.
And I'll moderate that a little bit. I mean, I'll come into a situation and I'll take a look at it.
Right.
And I may stop for a little bit to figure out my options, because I've just learned, it's like, all right, well, here's this option of getting through these people. Here's what are my other options for other lines? But I'll make a decision and off I go, but I'm not at Walmart sitting in the line. Like, and there's some races where that happens. And that's a whole nother thing, that's a whole nother story of tracks and races. And there's so much more to it than people know of why certain races can do certain things, why they can manage their races certain ways. There's just so much that people don't know. And there's one instance at Erzberg, for example. Like, I really hadn't seen, like, a true bottleneck like that anywhere. It literally had one line going into the densest trees. You couldn't see anything of where it went. And that was it. And there was a line of 60 guys. Huh. And I tell you, if you try to get in front of that line, there's going to be a fight. And you couldn't see where they were going or what they were doing, but it was a pinhole. And they had the section last year too. And I remember seeing video, Caleb Russell, the GNCC, national multi-gazillion champion. And then another guy as well that was, a really good rider. They came up to that, bottleneck. And that's essentially the end of their race. Oh, him and Paul Terrace, because Terrace was on the big bike.
Oh, right.
And they wouldn't let Paul in. They're like, fuck you to both of them. And there was nowhere to go. I mean, it was literally a wall, of tree with a pinhole entry. and a line of guys, that's pretty rare. But that demographic, that's just a different deal. They have a deal where, typically sometimes 5, 10, 20 guys, finish that race. And yet tons of people still come to that race.
Right.
And that becomes a misnomer because you have people in the US where it's been done. I'm not going to say where, but like, oh, that's a great idea. We'll just do a race that if hardly anyone finishes, well, we don't have to keep time. We can just like whoever physically gets there, there's only like 10 of them. How easy is that? An easy race to manage. And that looks, that's like the simple way out. But then you look at it when you go there and you go, wait. There's a reason they can do what they do. And they have 1,600 to 1,700 entries. And they only take 500 to the main race. So it's a pretty stiff qualification,
Right.
to get in there. And I didn't know this because I show up and I go, oh, we're doing the prologue. I heard it's fast. You got a hard enduro bike. Oh, it's super fast. It's crazy fast. And then plus you're competing with guys on 350 and 450 4-strokes on high speed because they know they're not going to finish the race, but they just want to tell their buddies they qualified.
Right.
And if you've ever been to Europe, all of Western Europe, there's virtually nowhere to ride. Like you can't go ride like we can. Like you're either in a motocross park, unless you have a hookup, and some private land, because there is no public land for riding other than motocross tracks. So that's why 40, 50,000 people show up to Erzberg every year, a town of like 3,000. And they show up and man, they just want to party and they just want to be a part of it. So you'll have 1,700 people enter, 500 will make the main race. I felt lucky just to make the main race. And yeah, they don't really need to care. We've obviously, gone a different route. And I know Carl Kartok, who puts that on. Actually, I spoke with him at length and Martin Fernatomitz of Red Bull Romaniacs. This year, they were both in Romania. So I had time to, talk to them, about our race and, some of their concepts, etc. And, again, that kind of helps form, what we're doing at Silver Mountain. So.
Yeah. So this year it's the 23rd, 24th.
Yep.
It's pushed one weekend further than it typically has been in the past. So is there a reason for that as far as like trying to get it off of Erzberg?
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be 2 weeks difference, but we're doing a couple things. But yeah, it's really a week. If we went another week, we'd be in July. So we didn't want to do that, but we're doing a couple things. The reason we moved the date, I would say number one is trying to move away from the snow.
Yeah.
If we're going to have 10 feet of snow up there, I'd rather take the chance of dealing with a little dust here and there than dealing with 20 feet of snow.
Right.
And, you saw the video, we had a D6 up there moving snow just so we could get people around the course. So it was a tough start. And then plus we're on the same weekend as Erzberg. So we're doing two things, at least for the next few years. We're scheduled outside of Erzberg, so we don't have that conflict. We already have some top international riders, I'll announce later, who are confirmed to come over. Pretty excited about that. Plus, having our big guns here, Cody Webb, Tristan Hart, and Ryder, and, Colton, all those guys will be here. And, obviously, the returning King Keith, and who's, man, always got to give him a shot, because when it comes to big mountain riding, the guy's a beast, man.
Yeah.
It's a different, it's his fish to water program.
Yeah.
And So, what we've really done this year is, trying to move it away from the snow. Um, another thing with designing the course too, and we've just seen too many places where, because of resources, etc., you essentially have one course, and it's easier to manage that way with resources and people, but it makes it really difficult on the amateurs, because I just, this is what Martin Fernandez has told me. He goes, listen, the reason we did the multiple, they started out with gold, silver, and bronze. Now they have iron and atom. So now they have 5. He goes, the reason we did it is, as we try to challenge the pros, essentially no one else would be able to finish. And he goes, that's not good.
Right.
We want people to be challenged, and challenge is relative, right? We had one of our friends, guys in his mid-40s, signed up for C class. He's never raced before in his life. He's totally new to this. And I actually looked at the results, and he was the last C class person to finish. And it took him 4 hours. If you asked him if it was challenging, it was challenging. He never gave up, and he used all the time.
Right.
And he was the last one to make it in and get a finish. So, that's really what we're looking at doing is, and that's the only way you can really do it. If you want to challenge the top pros, then you have to have tracks that filter down that meet the levels of your riders. And we're looking at having a full experience. We want to grow the sport. We want to have the opportunity for people to come in at the bronze class. And, you always have a spectrum. You have, the, young guys that crush it, and then you have the newbies coming in who, it's a massive achievement to finish it. And you just have that spectrum. And from now, I think it's always easier to adjust, and we will. I look at not just the results. I'm more interested in, for example, finish percentages. I go and look at a lot of races, and I'll see the amateur finish percentages in the single to low double digits. I just don't think that's where we want to be. What I would like to see, I know on our bronze loop this year, we had close to 200 riders. 78% of them finished. Now, the perfect number I'd say was probably like 70, but I'll take 78, right? On the A class is lower. We had out of 204, there were 240 riders in the A classes, and 62 finished. It's about 30%. I'd like to see that higher. I would like to get that closer to 60%. But I already know the course is going to be a lot longer this year. There's a lot of stuff that we couldn't use this year just because of the snow. And so all that stuff was cut out this last year, but we just couldn't link it. Now we took crews in there this fall, and we cut it all out. So we added heaps of new creek sections that have never been used.
Nice.
They're brand new. And then we've linked them, which was the most important. And that took some serious cutting. We're talking full on massive trees, like, to link these sections. So all that work's already been done. So it's definitely going to be more of a challenge. But, again, it's just one of those things where it takes the resources, and from that, that's the problem. And you'll see in the hard enduro world, especially in the US, is that, the promoters are like, well, it takes money and resources, to do all of this. And man, I understand that. But from our perspective, I just got to figure out a way to do it, because to me, I won't, I just won't do it any other way. And, and I think we opened registration, I don't know, 4 or 5 days ago, and we're half sold out.
Awesome.
So, I mean, and that's, and I'm not doing it, we're not doing it to sell out. It's just the biggest thing for that is that if we're meeting the desires of the people who want to ride, then it's going to be full.
Right.
And if we can continue to do that, that's the reason, we want it full.
Right. And yeah, and those, beginning classes and everything else is definitely where the sport's going to grow.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen races where, brand new people, and you can tell by their bikes and their gear, and they hit the first hill and then that was it. They turned around and went to the truck and loaded up. Like, I saw it with my own eyes. And I'm like, dude, I'll help you. Like, I wasn't riding. I was like, I'll help you. Let's just keep going. We'll go one more thing. Nope.
Yeah.
And yeah. It's like, hard enduro is not for everybody. And I get that. We're not trying to do that either. But, it's definitely a mix, and I think Martin Fernandez, I mean, he's pulled it off by having the various classes, and you challenge them, and you sprinkle in enough challenge, and with challenge being relative, you can give people, an incredible experience.
Yeah. I know you made an Instagram post about classes, but maybe talk about it a little bit with like gold, silver, bronze, kind of which categories you sign up for goes in which one, and then what to expect out of each class.
Yeah, I mean, for sure, the easiest one to discuss, and I'm not going to do it as a priority, is this gold, because it's really simple. Like, if you are not essentially a very good hard enduro rider, you probably don't want a piece of it. It's long. It's going to be super tough. But it just depends, it depends what you want, out of your ride. And with that, and it's not so much, there just becomes a point, like I said in the video, that you just can't push enough, and you can't walk enough. There's just too much. There's just too much volume of it, of up, down, up, down. Same with Romaniacs. I did gold class 2 years ago. I made it up babysitter. I made it up all, kill them all and these crazy climbs, but, and I did it mostly on the bike, but I just couldn't keep up with the time and the volume. There's just no way. Like, if you can't flow through that stuff, so, I had 3 days at it, never gave up, but, I eventually timed out. But I knew for me, I wanted to experience it. I wanted to, hit the biggest stuff and see if I could do it. And I was doing it. Actually, it's funny, man. My bike was actually in better shape than it'd been for any of the silver ones. But it was just the sheer volume. And yeah, it's amazing. Simply amazing what those guys can flow through.
Right.
So simply gold, I mean, that's something, if you want the ultimate challenge, that's it for sure. Silver is going to be a big challenge as well. I would say for your American kind of hard enduro aficionado, it's going to be a serious challenge. And I truly believe anyone who finishes silver, they should be proud of themselves. Like, they produced a very good effort, for sure. And I know it's fairly general. The bronze is more for new people coming in, very friendly. Yeah, there may be a little section where they're off the bike. There may be a section when they're off walking down or, trying to go up, etc. But for the most part, they're going to get a ride most of it. And I think what we're going to do this year to make it much more longer than last year, some of the quick young guys, just rip through it. And, but, these are guys that are approaching that silver status.
All right.
Right. So, it's kind of one of those things. So we'll definitely, to mitigate that this year, we're making the bronze course. It's going to be a 4-hour course, and it'll be much, much longer this year. But if need be, we're going to do multiple laps. So the B class may have a multiple, just so they get their 4 hours on the bike.
Right.
So I think that'll fix that. It'll give them great terrain. It meets, the new people, coming in. And, and again, though, I mean, that's kind of part of the, I kind of call it the value proposition, as you're trying to manage a track with, 3 different separate loops, integrate checkpoints, have them supplied, have all the people on the course. It's a big deal. I mean, it takes a lot of resources, and we've really doubled down with, it's like you look at where we're at, and we're on a private mountain. And I don't know if anybody knows this, but we pay the resort to be on that mountain. A lot. Somewhere between 50 to 100,000.
Wow.
Okay. Why do we do that? Why would we pay so much? Well, it's private land. A lot of ski resorts are Forest Service leases, and you will not get on, because even though the ski resort's there, the Forest Service still owns the land, and they have to go through the Forest Service. BLM land, same thing. Can't use BLM. I know Hare and Hound and some of the other places use some BLM, but in my opinion, it's really hurt Hare and Hound, because I've been there. I've raced some of them. I raced 100+ miler in Idaho, and out of 103 miles, 97 were quad trails. 97 miles of the 103 were quad trails.
Right.
And it's not the Hare and Hound's fault, because BLM gave them a map and said, these are where you can ride. So that's where they're at.
Right.
This timber company land, even worse. I called Riley Creek. I called 3 or 4 different timber companies. And this was just access to be able to take out riders, not even to ride on, just to have access to their property. They're fuck no. They don't want you, because it's like they don't want you anywhere near it. And the one lady, it reminded me of one of the episodes of Yellowstone, because we were looking just to access, like for EMS people. She asked me when the weekend was of the race. I told her. She goes, okay, well, that's good to know, because we'll have a security person there to make sure that if you cross onto the land, we'll be able to, take care of you. And the chunk of land, there's not even a road there, right? So she has no idea what the fuck she's talking about. But right. She's just that mean, She's just like, oh, and by the way, and they never did, she was full of it. But it's just a whole different program. So what Silver Mountain provides is a purely private mountain for us to utilize, which is really rare in the United States. And then you add it with a resort, that has the amenities that they have, which is incredible. And it was based after a European design. That's what makes it so cool. And then you have Kellogg, a great town, they appreciate it.
Right.
And, so for me, it was like, all right, you know, you know, yeah, it's a big thing we have to pay. But again, I mean, I look at it as we're not building a race, we're trying to build an experience. And some of the stuff that we have going on, I think that'll make that clear. It's like, we got to have a point where, you have to charge a certain amount. When we look at paying the resort, what we pay the resort, and then we look at all the heavy equipment bringing up there, we ended up with 70 volunteers. 70.
Wow.
We fed every day, man. We had a restaurant making them lunches, sack lunches, etc. And I think this year we'll have close to 100. And that's hard to even imagine. Like, if you would have told me the month before I was going to have 70 volunteers, I'll just say you're crazy.
Right.
I went with Matt Spears. There's a logging or a mining apparel company in Osborne, Idaho, just down the road. And someone told me they had really cool, like vests, like safety vests, like not cheap ones, like really cool ones. And so we went in there and we were trying to get a certain style. And because of COVID, etc., they had a shortage, and we're trying to get different sizes and of one specific style. And, we ended up finding about 47 of them. And Matt's just like, dude, we don't need 47. There's like 10 of us. I'm like, oh, we'll take all 47. And they screen printed them for us. Shoot, man. That first day, we had people fighting over those vests. All 47 were gone. And so, thankfully, Climb is one of our biggest sponsors this year, as a title sponsor. They really want to be a big part of this, and they've really stepped up to the plate. They're providing us an additional 70 Climb high vis, printed, safety vests.
Nice.
But, when we look at, we took 6 semis up there. We took up over 300,000 pounds of timber, renting equipment, all the setup, the insurance. We pay the US Hard Enduro series per rider. Like, it's a significant deal. And I hadn't really let anybody know about this year, but I put in the extra work after seeing how we did last year and the reception that we got. I went to Silver and said, listen, we really love this. You guys are awesome to work with. And they're great. But I need something. And they're like, well, what's that? I'm like, we need to have exclusive use of the mountain. I can't work around a mountain bike park for a lot of reasons. And, some of those reasons were getting EMS around, getting checkpoints set up, because we just can't cross an entire zone of a mountain. And you live in the mountains. Like, if you can't cross, well, you got to figure out a way to go all the way down and around and back up, or all the way up and around and back down.
Right.
And there's just not enough time. And, and then plus, we were always communicating, because there was the fear of a rider running into a mountain biker,
Right.
That's a huge liability. And, and they were warming up to it. I don't think they would have considered it in years past, just because the revenue wasn't there. And, it just wasn't there yet. But now it was they were concerned about safety. I was concerned about safety. And then I look at the investment that we put into the mountain. I mean, Inside Enduro went in the hole 60K to pull off last year's event.
Right.
And, and there's no whining about it. I had a vision of what I wanted it to be, and I was going to make that happen. And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out, we'll move on. But it worked out. And as far as my vision for this race, if you ask me, did we achieve it last year? No, we achieved a part of it, a small part of it, but not the whole vision. And I can tell you what, a lot more of that vision's coming this year.
Yeah.
And with that, and the cost is there, and, we're fortunate to have sponsors, and, and I know, entry fees are, not easy on the racers either, but there just becomes a point where, you got to decide what you want to do. And, before I could say, well, hey man, you go and ski Big Sky, it's over $200 for the day for just a lift ticket. Or you go to a concert, or you go to any event, you go to an event that's cool, that's a cool concert. Well, the reason it costs money is that it's a cool concert.
Yeah, for sure.
The event is good. So it isn't good enough for us to say, well, hey, other things are expensive, so buck up, little camper. I go, that isn't right. But our responsibility for Silver Kings is to make that event more than worth it, worth more than the entry fee. And again, that comes back to filling it up. I honestly don't care about filling up the roster. I honestly don't. As far as like numbers and dollars, that's the least of my concern. I've learned in business a long time ago, that isn't the answer. If we make the experience and we make the value there, it'll take care of everything else.
Right.
The filling it up will be a byproduct. So at the end of the day, that's just basically a metric that says to us that we did our job, that we made the event worthwhile. We made people really enjoyed it, and they felt connected with it. And if we achieve that, well, then at the end, that metric will be there, and we'll live to fight another day. And part of that big step was getting exclusive use to that mountain. And I just go down the laundry list, like, what does that extra cost bring to us? We can access more terrain, because when we're not crossing over this thing, not only do we have more access for media, more access for better placed checkpoints, and, water at checkpoints, all these types of things. Because if we're short on time and we can't get everything there, it's a problem. So more access terrain, media access, better checkpoint placement, supplies, EMS, getting bikes in and out. Also gives us full use of the radio repeater system off of the mountain. So now we have a full radio system that they used for the ski patrol, because before that was for the mountain bike park. The EMS, their whole EMS team, that was while we were up there, that's for the mountain bikers. So we kind of had a sub EMS thing. So now we have their whole EMS system plus ours. The other big thing is the mountain house, the gondola house. That's for our exclusive use. So now we can do the enduro cross up at the mountain house. Spectators can ride the magic carpet back up the hill, after they walk down, watching it.
Yeah.
There's a small balcony. You could literally watch the enduro cross from the bar on the balcony, but it's a small balcony. It's like, I don't know, maybe 12 people. But no, it moves us, our race right to front and center of the place. And, one of the neat things in building this experience we are doing an experiment. As far as your comments, it'd be interesting to see, if people want to comment on this. But we went to, instead of a Saturday, Sunday race, we went to a Friday, Saturday race, which is based on a lot of the Euro races. And actually, they're usually 3-day races, Romaniacs being 5, Romaniacs ends on a Saturday. And I didn't want to bite off too much on the first one. So my first try at this is to have the racing be on Friday and Saturday. And it just seems, as Americans, people have a really easy time somehow taking off early in the week. But man, they're going to be at work on Monday.
Right.
So if they got to jam out on Sunday, I mean, how many races have you seen where people just leave their awards? Like they pack up and they leave.
Yeah.
They got
I feel like, yeah, sorry, like 50% of people are out, if not more, just immediately upon finish.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been one of those people too. Like, yeah, got shit to do. Got to get back for Monday.
Yeah. And, that's a real thing. And, the other thing in Europe, it's pretty popular, the idea of a party. And, and it's not to me, like a party is a party, but I look at it more as if you finish on Saturday, and then you also have to picture like, what is Saturday on June 24th? It's a day or two after summer solstice in northern Idaho, in a totally beautiful place, one of the longest days of the year, on top of a mountain, right? So you can have your awards at, say, 7:30, and then really haven't told many people about this, but take your VIP pass and you get on the gondola at, say, 8:30, and you ride back up to the mountain house for a full-blown Euro party till midnight, where you can have a beer with your friends, talk about the racing, laugh about the racing, on top of the mountain you just raced, and you got all Sunday to pack up, head home. People want to let their kids, usually there's not enough time. People want to let their kids use the water park Sunday morning. They can hit the water park. The mountain bike thing will be open. Park will be open on Sunday. Some people want to stay, do a mountain bike session in the morning, and head out. And to me, it's more, yeah, we make it an awesome race. That's definitely a huge part of our priority. But for me, again, it's making it more of an experience where people worldwide, locally, like you come, and you're like, man, this is something I'm not going to miss.
Yeah. No, that's cool. What is, so Friday, Saturday, what does Friday look like?
Friday is looking like currently how is we have it slated for the A classes and the pros. There'll be a prologue, much like last year, but it'll be a longer prologue, probably somewhere between an hour and a half.
Okay.
And then in the afternoon, well, they've been calling it the amateur, but the B, C, youth, women, they'll have a 4-hour hard enduro. And that'll be concentrated on them. Like I said, maybe for the B class, we may be looking at, still, we've opened up a lot more terrain, but we got to, we'll kind of suss it out and put time on it to see what we got. But I'll tell you this, the B class, they're going to get much more riding than last year. They're going to be smoked. And this came with that, it's like, all right, we want to give them more terrain. We want to give them longer riding time. So I can do that. It's like, all right, we can double that. And then we had a lot of BC riders comment last year that they didn't want to race on Sunday. They wanted to watch the amateurs and pros, the A's and the pros.
Right.
And I was surprised. I was kind of like, oh, okay, all right. And so what I wanted to do and this is kind of a spoiler alert, is again, Friday morning, we'll do pro and A prologue, somewhere between an hour and a half. Short, probably a 2-mile course, similar to last year. We want to even kind of condense it even more for the spectators, make it more, more laps, just for the entertainment value.
Right.
And then in the afternoon, 4-hour hard enduro for the BC youth and women. And we're looking at taking the top, and 45 plus is also in there. AMA changed that. That wasn't our change, but 45 plus is now in the BC youth light and women. So those classes of the top 30, so, they'll get their points if they're in the series. They'll basically, get their trophies they're going to get the next day, but the top 30 will get a free crack at silver on Saturday.
Nice.
Pretty free go, right? It's like they don't have to worry about their trophies on the line. You don't need to worry about series points on the line, and they just get a taste, of that next level of terrain. Right. And hopefully I'll have an alternate system if, somebody doesn't want to do it and somebody does, we'll figure it out, to get, the top 30 in there. And then Saturday, so we're looking at, a 6-hour, full on hard enduro, basically on the silver and gold course. And, and one thing we're adding to this, or not the AMA, but the US Hard Enduro Series made the change of the 45 plus down to the BC rank. And really, they really didn't change it, I guess, in that respect, because they just had it as 45 plus before. And we put it, on the silver loop last year. And then some other races, put it with the BC. Right. So it really wasn't directed anywhere, but then they did make the statement this year that 45 plus was going to be in the BC ranks essentially. And they added the 40 plus expert, and I thought that was a move in the right direction, but I think it leaves out definitely, and I know you're younger, but the 50 plus guys that are out there, banging trails and still getting after it. I just thought, like not having a 50 plus expert option was just leaving out, kind of a big chunk of a lot of these guys, at least that I know, that, ride the hard mountain stuff and still get after it. And so, hey, this is for you guys out there. We've added a 50 plus class at Silver Kings. It's not a point class for the series, but it's a badass trophy. It's the same trophies as everybody else, and it rides on the silver loop. So it's a expert class. It's a 50 plus. It's its own class. So I'll have a 40 plus, and the guys obviously know if the 40 plus guys are chasing the series, you're going to want to sign up no matter how old you are for 40 plus. But for an extra thing for Silver Kings, and we've broken out our different classes. We have sub names for our classes, which I'm pretty stoked about. And those 50 plus, those older gnarly dudes that are out there still, cutting through the woods, those are going to be our Iron Kings. And, and the 40 plus guys are our Crusaders. Our A open guys are our Knights. The B class are the Barbarians. The C class are the Cavaliers. The women are the Valkyrie. You got a, Silver King. You've got a, Silver Queen, and, so on. And so we plan on some fun things with that. Another big investment too, I'd be remiss not to mention, it's like last year we gave a pit bike away. We gave just the purse money for the pro men and women was $20,000.
Yeah.
15,000 to the pro men. We gave 5,000 to the pro women. And, when I did the race demographics, man, I saw like, you know, 80% of our entries are amateurs. We need to do more. We need to do more for the amateur racers. And so, I mean, I took that stance with taking the risk and I guess the hardship of building, 3 courses, which does, I mean, that's why it's not done, is because it takes time, resources, and money, and which is in short supply, But I was just, people who know me, stubborn has come across, before, but it's like, no, I'm doing it that way. And then I looked at, I started to look at the money, and you're like, man, so much money is going, for the pros, So I'm like, all right, well, how can we even this out? And, by the AMA guidelines, we can't give amateurs cash, but we can do other things. So this year, I know I've posted some stuff. They've just been the digital setups, but Stephen Letty at Selkirk Graphics, we've got 12,000 into our trophies. So if you're an amateur and you get a trophy, it's a $350 trophy. It's custom. It's 3/8 inch thick iron that's been hand ground, hand beveled, primered, and multi layers of crazy metallic paints with clear coats. It's like a major, major process. Each one of these is an individual work of art. This will be a thing that doesn't get thrown away. It'll be an award that won't be forgotten. And, so right there, like, all right, well, that kind of evens up the playing field. Here's, $12,000 worth of trophies. Seems crazy because you could hand out plastic ones for $600 versus 12,000. So I guess we all do things different. And, so, that's one thing. Also, through our sponsors, we're looking at significant cool stuff. So for our amateurs, and we're not just talking to our podium people, just, whether we do it random in the crowd, we're going to try and figure that out. But let's just put it this way. I've already acquired over 10 grand of cool stuff. Not crap. We're talking moose type stuff. We're talking tires. We're talking full kits, helmets, jersey, pants, good stuff, good companies, not some shitty color. Like you go to the website, with your card, whatever you want, whatever color, etc. So, really I'm trying to equate the amateur benefits on that side to the pros as well. And then, except we've already done that on the tracks, to put the time in, because we spent more time, just as much time on the amateur track as we did the pro track, but we did put hundreds and hundreds of hours. So it's like they both got a lot, and even more so this year. But that's one thing that makes me sleep a little easier at night is, that's why we were there this fall, with our crews, because I was like, I am not going to be in the same position I was last year. It was rough, man. Like we didn't even have the full course decided till the last day, just because, we were fighting snow, man. Like we didn't know where we could exactly get. And we had to pull stuff out that we had slated. It was marked, it was cut. We couldn't use it. There's just no way to get people there. We held out to the last minute. Like, I'm not going to lie, dude. It was painful. It was painful. But man, I can't tell you, like the crew that we put together, unreal. I almost feel like magic happened because I just couldn't be there to see it all. And we had it slated and everyone was working on their part. And it did, man. It seemed like almost like magic. Like it just came together, and it worked, and you always have those things, it's it's like, I think there was something about like course marking, etc. And I looked, so we have a huge list of all these things. And, course marking is such an interesting thing. And we have some plans, more on the technical side, like we used your regular, blue flagging tape. And, you learn a lot about tape. And so that tape, I don't know if you're aware of this. I wasn't. It's not reflective. It actually absorbs light.
Interesting.
And so when I was over at Dit Rocks, they, in Romania and Romaniacs, they use blue tape. Except it was like 4 inches wide, and it was PVC tape, rollout tape, which is a poly, which is actually a plastic, and it reflects light.
Right.
And I can tell you, from the difference of blue that reflects light to blue that 3/4 of an inch wide that absorbs light to 4 inches wide that reflects light, it is a night and day difference. So we've got custom tape on order with our logos on it, 3-inch wide PVC, like it's reflective in the sunlight, night and day difference. We learned last year, I thought the guys could handle it, but this goes on to racers too. You need to be able to read the course. If you're going fast or you're not paying attention, it's not good enough. You need to be able to read the course. So we're going to do a much better job, and it was well marked. But I think with these new materials, we'll definitely improve it. Definitely more than 100%. But I got to tell you a little story. So I was at the last checkpoint with the checkpoint crew at the bottom of chair 1. And the guys come down the road, and then they basically hook a 180 staying on the road. And there's white tape all the way around the road. And there's some spectators even at that tape. And some guy comes burning down that road, and we're all sitting there watching him because we can see him, but he's not looking at us. He goes straight to that tape at the end of the road. It's a continuous arc of tape. And there's people standing there. He lifts the tape up and goes under. And everyone's screaming at him, like, what the fuck are you doing? And the guy was not cheating. Yeah, believe me, like you could tell. This guy, people just, they see that. I see it on the GoPros. Like you watch the GoPros, I've seen plenty of guys just go straight through white tape.
Yeah.
And they're like, where am I? Like, man, this course, it's not marked. It's like, dude, you just went through a solid white line. Like, and this guy, same thing. I think people just getting that, like, I just got to go. And we're screaming at from the checkpoint, like, dude, over here. And so he came back, went back under the tape and came back to us. It's like, oh, sorry, man, I was just looking ahead. And you knew the guy, wasn't cheating. He was just, yeah, like you watch the Nature Channel late at night, like I always do this, late at night watching sharks eat baby seals. It's something I like to do. I'm just kidding, actually. But when the great whites come in, you see the protective, their protective eyelids come down. So their eyes kind of go blue so they don't get scratched by the seals. So I think when people are in the shark attack position, they just don't see so well. But, again, that's another, just another thing that we're doing, trying to, create and add value to this thing. Along with the exclusive use of the mountain, which, I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, that's massive.
Yeah, that's huge.
It just affords us, the whole use instead of single file coming in for staging and spectators and spectator points and everything. I mean, it changes the whole dynamic. Another spoiler alert, me and a few guys, when we were there this fall, we climbed straight to the top of Wardner big rocky peak with the antennas on it, straight up it to the top. It was an effort. So guess what? It's going to be in a race.
Nice.
To the top. And we got even another crazy one. I don't know. We'll have to see what the snow does, because it's the North Glades, which would be a signature. That would go straight up the north face to the Kellogg Peak. So we would ascend straight up to both peaks.
Wow.
So, yeah, it'll be interesting for sure. So the other thing we're adding too is kind of going off the idea of straight rhythm. That's kind of become popular with from Red Bull, and they did the straight rhythm at TKO in downtown Nashville, as most people seen. And so we got something that's called street rhythm, and we're just getting our, I don't see why it wouldn't go through. I mean, we've got all the support in the necessary areas, but we're getting permitted to close the street down in front of the resort and do street rhythm directly in front of the resort on that main street.
Oh,
Friday night.
Friday night.
Yeah. So that's looking at, who knows, we'll see how people react, but probably looking at the top 30 finishers between the A's and pros, and then bracket them off in a 2 elimination. And we'll figure out some type of award. And then I would imagine we'll probably score them in a way that, combined with their prologue position and their final position, that makes a difference on where they start. So say you have somebody who finishes 4th in the prologue, and finishes 8th in the street rhythm, they come back, somewhere to around that 4 position, somewhere in the middle,
right?
6,
right?
But one way we can do that is like a moto scoring system. If you take the top 30 from the prologue and just give them 1 through 30, and then give them a score. So first place on a prologue got a 1, and then say in the street rhythm they got 6th place, so that'd be a 6. So their total score would be a 7. So then you would place them for the start for the next day, from lowest score to highest score. And then everyone, behind that just filters in with their time.
Right. So you're just starting on Saturday where you finished your prologue score on Friday.
Essentially. But so your street rhythm.
And maybe it modified if you were in the street rhythm.
Yeah, we'll modify it for the street rhythm, so it'll matter, so you could have somebody, didn't do well in the prologue and they just killed the street rhythm. They're going to move up places for the start for Saturday.
Right. Yeah.
But again, more fans, more, for the city, I think visually, insane. But again, you look at expense, like I'll be honest, like I originally wasn't sure about it, and I had a lot of pressure, from people with good intentions. And but the city, they pretty much want it built the same day and taken down the same day. And I've seen this done, but it's expensive. Now I got to have another team and a telehandler and a semi, because we need to be able to just pick up an endurocross course, like in a couple hours,
right?
Put it down hours. So everything has to be pre-done, pre-arranged, pre-cut. But will it be awesome? I think it will be. I think it'll be nuts for the crowd.
Yeah, especially right there in front. I mean, it's basically primed for it.
Yeah, and so that's exciting to me. Let me see, what else do we got? I'm looking at my notes.
I'm curious on track walk. Is that going to be a third? Can you walk on Thursday, or is there a track walk? Or
yeah, totally. You can walk the track on Thursday, and the only thing, and it's from from the resort, no e-bikes. They're going to have the mountain bike course shut down on Thursday too.
Okay.
So they thought it would probably not be cool to let us see mountain bikes going up and then telling mountain bikers they can't go.
Yeah.
So, and we've developed, the guys at Silver Mountain that do the national will and we've got along really good, and that's helped us, with the mountain bike group. So we're working in collaboration with them too, on sharing some trails, building new trails, that they can utilize as well. Because they do some gnarly stuff, with their downhills. So they can use some of the stuff that we put in. So we've got a really good relationship with them, and so then that's a priority of ours, just working well together, and sharing when we can. And and there's some give and take. We're going to get the mountain for our own use, and it's a big deal, and I appreciate it, and I hope we all do.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
So there'll be a track walk on Thursday, just no mountain bikes.
Okay. And then same, you can camp down there in front in the parking lot.
Yep. And if you go to our website, they have a program. And it's purely through the resort. So you can get like a scannable, print off a scannable deal, or, on your phone. It's just getting to the point where it's so full, they need to organize that parking. So I think they're charging, a small fee for that. But I mean, it's pretty nice, man. I mean, just nice being in a place that, you're not covered in dust and you're right there, in the middle of the event.
Great location.
Yeah. We're looking at also having a parade Thursday night again.
Okay.
So, I mean, dude, it's going to be jam packed, man. You think about it, like it's going to be a whirlwind. We have, if people are track walking or whatever, Thursday, parade Thursday night, prologues Friday morning, hard enduro Friday afternoon, straight rhythm Friday night, big main race on Saturday, big party Saturday night, like mental. And I'm just really bummed that, the more we put into this is just, I want to race it, but man, I think, I do. I truly think that, I'd like to take the heat off of people, if they can make that investment, and coming a little early, to ride and race Friday, Saturday. I hope they give it a shot and see the reward of being able to kick back Saturday night, whether they go to the party or not, and to reminisce and enjoy, their achievement and the challenge, they've partaken in. And I think that's super important. It's, I see it with a lot of stuff. I've been an Alaskan professional guide for a lot of years, and you have people hike for a week, 2 weeks, gnarly conditions, and they finally get their animal, and they're just like, hey, quick, take a pic, let's go. And you're like, dude, you just hiked for like 2 weeks. Like, you've lived in a pup tent, you've been wet for a week straight. Like, let's take some really good photos. But that's just like the human nature. It's like, well, let's just go. Let's get out of here. And then they get back and they're like, well, man, it's like, what do we got for pictures? Oh, we don't have shit because we left. We took 3 pictures and they all sucked. It's like, why don't you take a little extra time to enjoy your accomplishment? And I just got to the point where I'm like, no, we're taking pictures. But, I learned it early on when I first started guiding, because, you're trying to make the client happy. But then it turns out later they aren't happy because they're like, shit. They're happy that they did it, and they were successful, but they're like, man, I really wish I'd have got some better pictures, to remember this, and I kind of look at it the same way. So I hope people take that investment. It's like, hey, come a day early, but, Saturday night, you can either hang with your family, you can go to the party. I mean, we'll have a crazy DJ Euro. It's going to be a program. No one has to drive. You just got to be able to stay in the gondola.
Get back in the gondola.
Get back in the gondola, and it'll take you back to town. And so really, really, really excited for that. What else do we got? Yeah, course splits this year for sure. We're going to have a person at each split. That was very well marked. Some people just, I don't know. I think they kind of feel like maybe like I felt going to school. I felt like every time I took a test that someone was trying to trick me, So like if the answer was obvious, sometimes I would get anxiety and pick something that wasn't as obvious, because I always thought whoever was giving me the test was trying to trick me,
right?
Which was a bad thing, while taking the test. So I kind of think some of the guys think the same way, where they're kind of like, well, man, it says gold, go left, but man, it must be a trick. I'm going to go right. What do you do? What do you do? Yeah. But anyways, we'll have these splits manned. So we'll get down that for sure. Yeah, shoot. What else do you got?
Maybe spectators. Is there going to be a map?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. We definitely, man, we wanted to do it so bad last year. We had a deal worked out with Onyx, and when you didn't know where the course was, a day prior to the course, it's hard. And then you got a mountain bike course going on top of it, and then you got snow going on top of that. It just didn't happen. And so this year, the spectator map has already been made. We've already got the draft done. Looks incredible. We'll have them there. We have dedicated spectator zones and travel routes to those zones.
Nice.
So that's a big change. For the most part, we know where we're going to be this year. Again, we're just further down the track. So that's already been done. Yeah, we've had a really busy off season. Like I didn't like the taste of, trying to wing it with the snow, and even though we put in such an effort, it's good because we benefit from that effort this year, everything that we did last year, but you're just so much further ahead. So yeah, definitely. So spectators, that's a big priority of how we get people around. We've already talked with the resort, lifts 1, 2, and 3 will be running for us. Typically, I don't think they were letting us on 3 because of mountain bikers. And so, we'll have access to 3 as well. And the magic carpet, which will be interesting. Fortunately, we got to move those one logs we got. They're about 12 to 15,000 a stick. And so we got to move those kind of from where they were when we left them very nicely. We made a spot for them and put them away for the winter, but we got to move them up to the lodge. So we'll probably bring in another, load of logs, but again, you're going to have a excavator, skid steer, a telehandler. So, it's like, can you rent them for about a week? So, not cheap, but no, it will make it really cool. Another thing too that I looked to do last year, but simply just ran out of time, and we're going to do our riders meeting is going to be YouTube live.
Wow.
And I know Martin, I talked about that with Martin this year, and he's been doing it for I think 3 years now. And we used to do it where all the competitors would have to show up at shoot, it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night every night, into like a big facility. And I mean, it's like you're trying to eat and you're trying to get your gear ready, and and you gotta go to these meetings, and it just really sucked. And then with the whole COVID thing, he started doing them on YouTube Live. So him and Tio would sit there, and do the whole writers meeting. And at first it was kind of weird, but man, I really enjoyed it as a competitor because, say the writers meeting is at 7, and say you got bike work, say you got kids, say you're trying to get people fed, and and not everybody makes it, you can click on your phone, at 7 o'clock, you can watch it live, or you can watch it at 7:30 or 7:45 or 8, and not interrupt, what you're doing. And I think, as when you get into the crowd, you got bikes running, you got, all sorts of stuff going on. It's hard to stay on track. So from the YouTube setup, I'll be able to go through everything specifically, have all the notes. We can take questions, people can type in. I can have someone moderate that. And then it's recorded. People can watch it anytime that evening. And then we'll probably have a short, an abbreviated one in the morning. But, as when you go to those, they're really not that great. It's like you just got too many people going on. The whoever's putting it on has 27 things going on at the same time, and it's just really not that efficient. And so I'm pretty stoked to do the YouTube Live. And then, then if you miss it when it's live, you can watch it 10 minutes after it started. You can watch it 2 hours after it started. So might as well use some technology for us cave people.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I like it. Yeah, it always, they're important to get to and pay attention to, but it does seem like it's hard sometimes with, yeah, there's a lot going on.
Cool, man. Well, again, man, we're trying to make this race available for anyone who wants to do hard enduro, and I think we're getting there. Like I said, when I saw the guy that we know who signed up, and he signed his kid up, he was 12. His kid finished, to see his kid never raced before in his life, like never even thought about it. And a little 12-year-old kid was riding a 250 full-size bike, lowered suspension, and kid made it through the enduro cross, maybe had a little help on the logs on the exit, but finished the course. His dad comes behind him and takes him 4 hours, but he completes the B course, and I think we can improve on that. So the race is definitely there for everybody. And I'm excited to see, we have the women's classes, we have the pro women's classes, obviously the traditional, the A Open, those guys are the knights. Those are, it's a tough bunch. That's the rowdy bunch for sure, and, good to see that. And I'm excited too, to mention again, I'd like to see, we want to grow it everywhere. But again, I just see so many guys that are in that kind of like 50 plus range that I think have kind of checked out from the whole, racing idea. And, I just like to see some of these gnarly guys come out of the woods and have a go with each other,
Yeah.
And I think an important concept for that, because we had somebody ask today, I don't know if it's a 40 plus guy or a 50 plus guy, but he's just like, hey, are we going to start behind everybody? And that's what's cool with the prologue. It's like, if you're 30th overall, you're going to start 30th.
Right.
You'll start in front of, another class. And I think that's cool. I mean, that's what makes a prologue worthwhile. Like,
yeah,
no messing around, it's
no,
a real,
sure. Yeah. And it's a great just sorting for exactly that reason. You are where you finished, and, it's not much to argue with at that point.
Yeah. And it is because, people get really hung up with, getting, like you said, getting caught. Like I could have done better, but I got caught up behind these guys and etc. There are points where, like I said, you have a 2-lane highway that construction goes to 1 and you just get caught for a while. But, that just teaches on, everybody handles that different.
Right.
Man, I know we're gone long, but I don't know. I'll just tell you, like, people think a little differently. So I was coming down I-90 from the pass, and my wife was having a knee surgery, and I was coming from Montana, and she was getting it done in Spokane, and came down past Mullen. So I wasn't to Kellogg yet, but I was just before Wallace, and they had 2 lanes shut down for construction, and somebody head on with a fuel truck semi and caught the forest on fire, fatalities. They were pulling all the water trucks off the mine like crazy, right?
Wow.
And my wife has like surgery in like 2 hours. And I'm thinking, man, we're not missing this surgery. So I flipped a 180, and I just, I used to live in Idaho. I lived, north of Coeur d'Alene, and I know that area pretty well. And so I whipped around and driving very aggressively. And I drive from just before Wallace all the way back into Montana on I-90. And then I exit on the Hiawatha Trail, where you mountain bike down towards Avery, Idaho. And a lot of people don't know that you can actually drive on that trail through the train tunnels. They're old train tunnels, and there were mountain bikers, but there's a few of those tunnels you can go through. So I literally go on the Hiawatha Trail through these train tunnels, drop all the way down the backside into the St. Joe, head south, come up the St. Joe River over Moon Pass, all road. I mean, sliding corners, drop into Wallace, and I got her there on time. So everyone kind of looks at like a roadblock, like a little differently. You know, I'm going to figure out, kind of a way, to get by. But, it brings me into another point where, one, you mentioned it, is the efficiency. So not only if you typically do people by prologue, your whole course should flow a little better. You're not having a group that has less skills than another group in front, and then they have to come through. So It kind of keeps the natural flow of things, the best possible, right? And so that helps out for sure. But then I do take a little different look at bottlenecks. I classify them into two programs. You have a geological bottleneck, and you have what I call a skills deficit bottleneck. And the geological, you got a pinch point, and someone gets messed up on it, and boom, you got to back up. Well, we've really done, I think you saw in the videos, like we took out picks and shovels. We made separate lines, 2, 3, 4 lines, because in my thought process, that isn't the place where racing's occurring, right? If you have that, you're just truncating the race. So I would prefer to take those geological sections and open them up the best I can. Like coming out of one of the main creeks, there was one line, a couple of years ago that stuffed everybody. We've cut in like 4 or 5 different lines coming out of that creek, because the point is, I want people to race in the creek.
Right.
There's no racing at a truncated bottleneck. Right. And then if we get to a place on an open slope like Green Hell or Vietnam or whatever we're calling it, that you get into that, the racing becomes, you picked a better line, you burned in your own line, etc. So we're trying to remove as much of the geological point, not just remove them, but add lines to get people through them quickly. And we want people to race where the racing is. Like you have a slope like that that's 200 yards, 250 yards wide, that we've cut most of the trees out, that, man, you can use your skills you can press on, you can form a group, form a coalition. Let's move the army over the hill, right? And then separate out, and go from there. But like you said, it's just because, I don't know, everyone looks at it different. I look at it as a contract. Like my contract is, for each obstacle, and I'll complete my end of the bargain. But that's the strategy of it, right? Like, hey, is this gonna help me overall? Is it gonna hurt me overall? Or you may not have a choice. This may just be the only way up. So.
Yeah. The skill deficit or whatever it is type of bottleneck it's fun. I mean, to me, it's like playing a little game of chess. You're picking your moves early or later, and you're trying to set yourself up for success. And that at the end of the day, it's on you, whether you want to get brave and try some or just stay in line and see where it sorts out. But at least you have that option. Whereas the geological stuff, you can get funneled into a pinch point and you're literally there with nowhere to go until it clears out, which is frustrating on many levels.
Yeah. It happens from time to time, but and that's another thing of kind of, this is what Mr. Miller was talking to me the other night. He's like, what's going on here? He goes, there was an etiquette before. It's like, if you're in those situations and you haven't quit racing, and I've just seen guys do it. I've done it. I've pulled up on somebody that was just stuck, having a shit time. And not that they were a bad rider or anything, maybe they just missed their timing and now they're stuck in it and now they don't have the run at it. And it's just like, well, I could sit there for hell knows, how long, or I can move my bike to the side, get up there and pull them up. And maybe I don't even need the help. Right. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But that continues you racing. Just stopping to stop to have a rest, it's not exactly, racing. I mean, sometimes you do stop, but if you are going to stop, don't stop in the middle of the trail.
Right.
Move the bike over, have a rest. That's fine. I mean, that's up to you. But, keeping bikes out of the way, helping others get up so that everyone can move. Because everyone, I can't tell you how many times that you pull up and there's 10 guys watching one guy. You're like, guys, like, there's your problem right there. Like, if you really want to be racing, get off your bike and help that guy.
Yeah.
Move on. And, it's just one of those things. But again, part of the strategy. But again, we're doing our best to really try to kind of X out the geographical. But, I mean, that's part of mountain riding. We'll do our best to alleviate those the best I can. And, because like I said, we don't want to really see the racing there. And, but boy, some of the big slope stuff, we're going to open it up, and let people have a go. And I was just amazed how the lines developed in there. It just reminded me totally of Romaniacs. It's like that stuff's like all day long. And, it's so cool to see. It was fun for me to ride, coming back and riding it later. I was just like, this turned out awesome. I mean, maybe didn't feel awesome to some of the people that were in there, but I tell you, my first shot at Romaniacs did not feel awesome. Right. So,
well, they're still probably talking about it, and now time's gone by with a little bit more fondness too.
Yep. Yeah, but man, the guys, like the guy from Washington on the 450, but he did message me and said, he did buy a 300. It's like definitely left an impression. So so it was pretty good. But yeah, we're excited to to try to even up the program and really do the best we can for the amateurs. Trying to match that to the pros, and I think we can do both. And with not only the terrain, but what we're giving them, and again, it's just like when you look at the price of this thing, I'm looking at as the price of an experience of what we need to do. And we're doing our part as far as equipment and getting exclusive use of a private mountain and everything that goes along with it. And, that's our portion. And then the other portion is simply those who want to experience it. Well, that's their option to come. But I can tell you, last year I thought was good. This year will be unforgettable.
Awesome. How can people get a hold of you? Where to go look for info?
Yeah, we have our website, silverkingshardenduro.com, has everything. We have the classes, video of the class description. We've got the lodging setup that has a discount code, the different amenities in the area. There's just heaps and heaps of information at silverkingshardenduro.com. Also, we post quite a bit on our Instagram at Silver Kings Hard Enduro. And those are the two main places.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate it. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, it's not too far away. So
yeah, it's coming up quick.
That's the only part with training hard is like when you're training hard and then the races are too far out, you're like, man, I got to train hard for a lot longer.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, dang, I wish you could just, get in shape like in maybe like a 3-week program,
Yeah.
From sedentary to pro level shape, maybe.
Yeah. I'm just glad it's later so I can actually get some on the bike time before that race. These early ones are rough.
Yeah, that'll definitely help out, and it's not so much, I'm not worried about how much snow is there now. I'm worried about when it turns off and starts melting. That's because it can melt quick. But yeah, man, I looked at through my pictures and I think it was June 14th last year. We got like 4 inches up there, and the race was on the 17th.
Yeah.
So yeah, not awesome. Hey, you want to have a big mountain race? I guess you're on a big mountain, so that's one of the things that
comes with the territory.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. Well, really appreciate it. Yeah, looking forward to it.
Cool. Well, we'll see you there.
All right.